Voter Howard Balzer, now on Rockin' Manooch with Jimmy B on Fox Sports 910.
Howard Balzer now joins us to talk some NFL football as a lot of coaching changes over the last 2 weeks. Last one just got filled with the Commanders with Dan Quinn. Patriots are hiring Alex Van Pelt. Marvin Lewis joins the Raiders as an assistant head coach. It's a lot of moving and shaking when it comes to the coaching carousel. And we now have Howard Balzer to talk more about it. Howard, of the 8 jobs that were open, which job do you think has the quickest way to success? Which one do you think had the most talent for a coach to jump in and hopefully get his team to the playoffs maybe year one?
I would say it's probably the Chargers. And I think that's obviously why Jim Harbaugh gravitated to that job. And the biggest thing about it is, of course, they've got the young quarterback that they can build around, and a team that has a pretty talented, solid roster, and obviously underachieved. Lost a lot of close games. I think they lost 5 or 6 games by 3 points or less. So they're a team that's not very far away from being really, really competitive. And on top of that, they get a guy who's been a talent evaluator with the Ravens for a long time to be the GM, Joe Ortiz, who I'm sure came very highly recommended by another guy with the Harbaughs that kind of knows. I mean, another guy from the family that knows Jim a little, pretty well. Obviously, John Harbaugh with the Ravens. So I think that's that, and I think a lot of people said that going into this whole cycle that that was one of the more attractive jobs, because of the quarterback. So many of these other teams, you're wondering who's it going to be? Who's going to be the Falcons quarterback? We know Carolina's got the first pick in the draft from last year, but a lot of work to be done with Bryce Young. And so, like I said, New England, who's going to be their quarterback? So there's a bunch of these teams that you really wonder about when it comes to that. And so, that's a pretty solid place. One thing that really struck me about this hiring cycle, now that it is finished, is that the trend over the last close to a decade has been the majority of the coaches hired were guys that had offensive backgrounds as a coach, mostly coordinators. This year, there were some offensive guys hired, but there were more defensive-oriented guys hired than offensive guys. So I think that's pretty intriguing, because obviously those guys will come in and they're probably going to be – they have a good chance to be good coaches, but their biggest thing they've got to do is find that offensive coordinator and a very good quarterbacks coach to be able to give those teams a chance to win.
How did it surprise you that Seattle, who just gave up one of the greatest defensive minds of all time, Pete Carroll, hired Mike Macdonald? I know he's a very good defensive coordinator. He's 36, where he himself said, that being Pete Carroll, that it was non-football people that made the decision to fire him, meaning maybe they need more offense. They lead toward the offense. We're not just don't have the sex appeal that everybody else has. Were you caught off guard that McDonald got the head coaching job there in Seattle?
Well, he'd been a guy that everyone was talking about, and certainly seemed like, he was definitely a guy that, a bunch of teams had interest in. So from that level, I'm not surprised. From that aspect, I'm not surprised he got a job. But from the Seattle standpoint, they're looking at a situation where, like you said, they've had a defense-oriented coach. They've had several offensive coordinators through the Pete Carroll tenure, but they've been a very good team. Now, of course, what are they doing going forward? Is it going to be Geno Smith? Is who's going to be the coordinator? What about Drew Lock? Do the coaches think he can be developed, or are they going to try to find someone else to go forward with that franchise? And so that's what I was a little surprised that they didn't go with an offensive-oriented coach.
Yes,
but for whatever reason, a lot of these teams went in the opposite direction. Now we'll never know what would have happened with Ben Johnson had he not removed himself from consideration from both the Seattle and the Washington job in the last 24 hours. He probably would have gotten one of those, and that would have made it a little more even between offensive and defensive guys. But once he removed himself, both those teams obviously moved very quickly to get their guy.
Howard Balzer is our guest on the Right Toyota guest line. Okay, Bill Belichick, I think it was Rock earlier on the show, had the stat that he's been coaching for 50 years. This will be the first year he will not be a coach. What does he do, Howard? Go look into your crystal ball.
Well, a lot of stuff is being chattered about out there, and there's a lot of talk. So there's not an original idea on my part, but everyone has thought it'll be something in the media because he can be, away from being the head coach of the Patriots. He's obviously very knowledgeable, but he also, is much different when he's not answering questions from the media. And there's a lot of talk, like one of these networks is going to develop a similar thing to the Manning cast that Monday Night Football has with Eli and Peyton Manning, and that he's going to team up with Nick Saban and have some kind of, telecast like that. Maybe it's with Thursday Night Football on Prime. Maybe it's with, something else. Who knows? But that's been a lot of the chatter that something like that could happen. In fact, it was crazy because Rich Eisen of NFL Media and NFL Network mentioned that about, I think it was over the weekend, and all of a sudden came word that NFL Network might be looking, to do something like that. Of course, they don't have games on a weekly basis, but I don't know if there'd be anything stopping them from having one of those things going on at the same time as one of the games on whatever network it's on a given primetime night.
Howard, I know you're probably getting ready to head over to Vegas for the Super Bowl. Many storylines, even the Taylor Swift storylines, what have you. What are for you? What's the intrigue, or what do you want to do storyline wise that might be a little different this year around than the other 50 years worth of coverage?
And can I add to that? What's your favorite Taylor Swift song?
I couldn't even name one.
Shake it off.
To be
Shake
honest.
it off.
Me?
Although does she have a song? I've seen this in the last few days. Does she have a song or an album that's called 13 or something like that?
Beats the hell out
Jax?
of me.
No,
Jax,
I guess
I don't
no.
know.
Yeah, we don't know.
I saw some reference to that only because people are having all kinds of fun with the numerology.
Yeah.
With this is Super Bowl 58. Add 5 and 8 together, that's 13. The 49ers 4 and 9 together, that's 13. Of course, the thing that might put a fly in the ointment of the Taylor Swift deal is that Brock Purdy wears number 13.
That's right.
So
Oh, jeez.
it's pretty funny. But
1 minute.
Overall, like you said, there are so many good storylines with this, with how many times the Chiefs have been here. I mean, right now, here's a stat for you guys. Patrick Mahomes, this will be the 18th playoff game of his still relatively young career. In 104 seasons in the NFL that the Cardinals have been a franchise in Chicago, in St. Louis, here in Arizona, they've been in the playoffs as a franchise 17 times. So Patrick Mahomes will have more playoff appearances than the entire Cardinal franchise in over a century. But, there's a lot of storylines, no doubt about it. The 49ers, I picked the 49ers. I'm kind of, you hate to, not that you're necessarily rooting for a team, but I've been trying to predict the Super Bowl winner in Lindy's for over 30 years. And I've never got one right in over 30 years. I picked the 49ers, back when the magazine went to print last May. So certainly on that respect, wouldn't mind if the 49ers win and I can say, hey, I finally picked, pick the Super Bowl winner. But like you said, there's so many storylines, so many things that are going on. Plus, it's Vegas. I mean, gosh, what I'm really curious to see how this is, because everything's obviously compact with the Strip and all the things going on, and the different hotels and all those things, including, of course, guys, I got to mention quick, NFL Honors, which is a week from tonight, when the 2024 class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame will be announced. And very, very anxious to see that finally be announced, because me and 49 other on the committee have been sitting on the results for a while, and we're sworn to secrecy. So I'm looking forward to that and doing a show for Sirius. And by the way, I just got in the mail today. I got to send out a little picture on Twitter. Just got a mail today. Got in the mail a gift from the Pro Football Hall of Fame for my 20 years of service on the Hall of Fame committee, and it is beautiful. It is absolutely stunning. And I got this box and I'm saying, what the heck is this? And I opened it up and I said, wow, this is unbelievable. So anyway, really looking forward to that next Thursday as well, along with the other awards that will be announced that night.
With all that stuff he just said, guys, he's going to start charging us more for coming on. Man. I mean, geez, man, big 20-year anniversary gift. That's awesome. Hey, good nuggets as always, man. Appreciate it. Enjoy Sin City, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you next week. Thank you.
Yeah, look forward to it. And yeah, you mentioned the 20 for the Hall. This is actually my 21st election, 20 years, and this will be only my 43rd Super Bowl. So, hey, what can you say?
Only. That's Howard Balzer. Make sure you follow him on Twitter all next week, as he'll be live from Media Row for SiriusXM, and he'll jump on with us as well. You can follow him on Twitter at hbalzer721. hbalzer721. Appreciate his time. Fan pick'em, Twin Peaks. You still get your picks in for next week's Super Bowl.